Thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah. I'm sure it's exactly right. I've also.
Matt, you ready to pull it out?
You
ready?
Yeah.
You have out, it's out. Oh, it is out. Did you have that last one trip that wasn't fun?
Mhm.
I went down and
Yo.
use the same little keep out. Yeah.
So I'm just, you don't need to worry about this.
Nope, I won't. Yep.
Who does? I'm sitting down. You did?
You guys are live and ready to roll.
Okay,
Right.
everyone, it's 5:31. I'm going to call this meeting of the OCA Board of Education to order. We will start by doing the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to skip over the correspondence. There's no correspondence tonight. Audience and citizens, we have a visitor this evening. Hi, Eric. Thanks for coming. I'm going to go over the rules for audience and citizens tonight, meeting conduct. The board may permit any individual or group to address the board concerning any subject that lies within its jurisdiction, except as noted below, during a portion of the board's regular or special meetings so designated on the agenda for such purpose. The Board of Education does not respond to specific questions during the course of public address, although a topic may be formally added to a board meeting agenda at a later time. The superintendent of schools may respond or clarify a specific question or issue at the meeting or subsequent to the meeting, or the board chairman may respond on behalf of the Board of Education. All speakers must identify themselves by name and address. 3 minutes may be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 30 minutes to each subject matter. The board may modify these limitations at the beginning of a meeting if the number of persons wishing to speak makes it advisable to do so. A board member shall be appointed by the chairperson prior to the meeting to act as timekeeper for the meeting, if deemed necessary by the chairperson. No boisterous conduct shall be permitted by any board meeting. Persistence in boisterous conduct shall be grounds for summary termination by the chairperson of that person's privilege to address. Speakers are required to refrain from presentations that discuss specific employees of the Board of Education, regardless of whether or not the employee is identified in the presentation by name or by other reference that tends to identify an individual. Members of the public are encouraged to submit commendations, comments, charges, or complaints concerning specific employees to an appropriate administrator and/or to the Board of Education under provisions of Board of Education policy. I'm going to appoint Karen Broder to be my timekeeper. Eric, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you again for your time and consideration. I really appreciate the opportunity to come speak to you all. I apologize normally I speak with a teleprompter, which is a bunch of words on the glass. So I'm going to do these little cheaters here and just read off the document. I brought several copies for you guys. Again, I'm here tonight just to advocate for student athletes in the town of Old Saybrook, and more specifically, my daughter Kendall. Our daughter Kendall is a sophomore and a 3-sport athlete at Old Saybrook. She plays field hockey and lacrosse at Old Saybrook High School. But her real passion is ice hockey, and we're lucky enough that Kendall is able to represent Old Saybrook by playing on the Daniel Hand ice hockey team. We appreciate this opportunity that has been given to our daughter by the school, otherwise she would not be playing elsewhere. However, we did identify a significant issue when it comes to her playing for Daniel Hand, and that is the inconsistency between the pay-to-play policies across different sports within the district. I'm not sure if we currently have a policy. When Kendall expressed her interest in joining the team, we spoke to the school about getting her on board for a squad. The original estimate was about $500 to play on a team. So as you can imagine, we were shocked when we got a bill for $1,750 from Daniel Hand in November of 2022, as well as a $250 booster fee. Over the last year, we've been trying to gain some insight into the reasons why our daughter is required to pay, but other athletes in the system are not. Kendall was required to pay this fee to Daniel Hand, whereas we have learned that certain other athletes, such as the football program, are not subject to any financial obligations. And I believe they're in the same situation. We also learned that former male hockey players from Old Saybrook over the last few years, when they played East Haven High School, were not required to pay to play. We feel this discrepancy raises concerns about fairness and equity, as well as possibly clear Title IX issues. We believe that all student athletes should be treated equally and provided with the same opportunities regardless of the sport they choose to participate in. We'd love to seek information regarding the current state of our Title IX policy in this school district. As you know, there's a Title IX issue with a neighboring town and their lack of transparency, which led to some issues. Do we have a Title IX officer? When was the last time our Title IX policy was updated? Do we have a Title IX policy that we currently follow? Have there been meetings recently about Title IX in Old Saybrook, and are those minutes available to the public? I'd love to see those if they were. To address these concerns, we'd also like to try to come up with a comprehensive plan by working with the board as well as the faculty and administrators of the school that deal with equitable treatment, transparency when it comes to guidelines, and also parent involvement. Obviously, encouraging open communication between the school and school board and foster a collaborative approach in addressing concerns will, I think, overall improve the experience for student athletes. We believe that addressing these issues will contribute to a more inclusive and supportive athletic environment for all students in the Old Saybrook district. We appreciate your time in this matter.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Point of order.
Yes.
I didn't hear him state his name and address.
Oh,
I apologize. My name is Eric Dobratz, ERIK, DOBRATZ, 20 Pepperidge Trail. And I made 2 copies of the statement if you'd like to have it.
Thank you.
You mentioned to me. like,
Yes.
so.
Yes, Eric, I have actually asked, we've asked our, athletic director here this evening to listen to the presentation. I'm going to ask, superintendent to work with, athletic director on this issue and come back to the board with next steps.
I'm sorry to hear the last part.
I'm sorry, I want to ask the superintendent to work with the athletic director on possible next steps, and we'll be in touch with you.
We've had preliminary meetings with Mr. Dobrat and his wife and Mr. Saunders, and Mr. Saunders and I had some subsequent follow-up meetings and working towards a response.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for coming. Moving on, our consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. So may I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion or any questions? We have no questions of second, and that's call for a vote. All those in favor, of approving the consent agenda? Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Okay, moving on to educational leadership. Administrator.
Yes, so we have our usual presentation this evening, but what's unusual about our presentation this evening is we've asked all of the administrator representatives to be here either virtually or in person, because as everyone knows, I won't be here to see this year completed. And I really think it's important that the board understands and that the team understands that they are quite capable of seeing these initiatives through to the end of the year. And as I've said in years past, and I say again tonight, none of this work gets done by me, by myself. All of these folks do a lot of the heavy lifting. And so it's really appropriate that they be here to talk about the work that they're going to do. Just a few things. This document that you have in front of you is an internal working document. This is not meant to be easy to understand by people who aren't going to get the presentation you're going to get tonight. It's really meant to be our document that will continue to live and breathe. It will change throughout the course of the year. You will hear about those changes and updates periodically. But we will put a version of this, or perhaps this and an accompanying document on the website. even today, we were making changes, not just to formatting. I know Dr. Fletcher spent some time adjusting a few things and making sure that it was clear, and we added some of the columns like the on track and not started today, because not everybody had done that. We also prepared a glossary for you that explains the many educational abbreviations that we all love to use. Thank you for the feedback, Karen, Alan, and Trevor. Much appreciated. We forget that from time to time. We speak in initials to each other all the time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Fletcher to begin, and I know he's going to call on the other administrators to continue their part of it. And it was my apologies to Brendan Saunders, who we so new to being an administrator, we A, forgot to get him a seat. And B, we forgot to include his goals in the original report. They're here tonight and they're here in the document that you'll be able to look at. And we also never got him one of these, so we have a lot of making up to do there. But we will fix all of that soon. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Corinne.
Good evening, everyone. First, I just want to mention, to say what Superintendent Butcher was saying, that this is our working document and that we will continue to make changes to this document and trying to make it as clear as possible. We'll also work to try to limit the use of acronyms within the document, because it was a chore, and some of my colleagues had many phone calls with me, probably too many, where they were sighing to hear my voice, as I wanted to clarify what acronym with which meaning. First, I just want to talk about the structure of the document. Starting with the upper left side, you'll see our 21 through 26 strategic plan goals. That is just as it appears on our website and every other document. Down that left side, that column, you will see that our goals are stated there, either equity, high quality instruction, or the safe and supportive environment. In cases where a building's goal or another administrator's goal is touching on more than one of those, you'll see it combined with a hyperstandard. Moving into the next one, you'll see the building level SMARTY goal. That is our inclusive goal that we're trying to be measurable and time bound specifically, but we are also looking to be inclusive and equitable. So all of our equity measurements, we're looking to capture that inside of our SMARTY goal. And down that column, you will see each level's specific SMARTY goal. The primary driver might be a new term. In this case, we have been doing a lot of work together since July, in which we have been working in improvement science. And even with our partnership with CPRO, and I apologize, I will never get their acronym correct, but it's a group from Columbia University. I believe it's Columbia Policy, Research, and Leadership. First time ever. Even working with them, we have been working collectively on improvement science. And part of what we're doing is looking at the specific mechanisms within our system that will allow us to reach these changes. Inside of this document, we named 4 of those: curriculum, high quality instruction, professional learning, and leadership structures. When we're talking about leadership structures, we're talking about those structures that pre-exist inside of our buildings or the district that we're trying to utilize to help move us towards that goal. So this could be something like a department meeting. It could be our school improvement leadership team meetings. These are things that exist already. We're not recreating anything, but we're using that time and maximizing that time to do this work. When you look down the column, it is color coded. That light blue will correspond with a light blue statement inside of the tactics, showing that that is a high quality instruction driver that is connected with high quality instruction actions. As we said, this is a working document, so we're still working to really connect all those nuanced pieces, and we'll be doing that throughout the year. Move into the next box is the tactics. These are our benchmarks, any metrics that we're trying to meet throughout the year. And to the right of that is the additional goals. This is just any additional statement that will help to clarify to you, to anyone looking at the document, when it's public facing. Also to ourselves, so that we're reminded of the different steps that we've called and named, so that we can follow through on that. There are 3 different components inside of this, when you're looking at the current status. One is a off track, which you won't see here because we are just starting these goals. There is an on track, which will be color coded green, and then you'll see a yellow not started yet. This is more of that stoplight system, where if you see a red, that means that we somehow got off track and we're trying to reach that again. Throughout the year, we have strategic points where we will be updating the progress of this document. So to walk us through, I'll start with my own inside of, which I believe is page 4 or 5. For the curriculum department, we're looking at 2 specific goals. The first one is combining the strategic plan goals of equity and high quality instruction. By June 2024, we're looking to increase students' access to high quality curriculum and assessment in all content areas. As a lot of you are aware of, there was new law that was put out that makes all of our curriculum and assessments public facing. And one thing that we want to be sure of is that all of our curriculum is at the highest quality, but also has that presentable Old Saybrook feel to it and look to it. So that's one thing that we're really hoping and really excited about working on inside of the curriculum department. To do that, we're looking at 3 specific drivers. The first one being curriculum, looking to really build a strong connection between what we named in the strategic plan from the 21st century skills document, and also our content practices in all of our content areas. We're also looking to clarify the assessed standards that we're working on, so that we're providing a very clear path for our students. In trying to get to all of these pieces, we're really going through a lot heavily inside of that professional learning idea. We want to make sure that in all components, we have a clear understanding of what it means to have high quality instruction in terms of curriculum and assessments. So we're spending a lot of time discussing this inside of our professional learning opportunities with our teachers, but also with our instructional leadership team and all of our departments. We're also looking to build this out and make sure that we're providing high quality instruction for our elementary school, especially with the Science of Reading and the Right to Read Act. As a part of this, you'll see in the curriculum in that last goal, we have the completion of the literacy material test group using the American Reading Company materials, and having continuous professional learning opportunities for those teachers inside of that cohort that are implementing that. To do this, we're really looking to maximize the time inside of our leadership structure of our district leadership team, our DLT, as well as our instructional leadership team, the ILT meeting times. And thinking about our American Reading Company implementation team, they are working collaboratively throughout the year, but we also have a working group that is helping us to design the professional learning needs for that specific group. And we've designed that leadership structure to really focus on the needs of those implementing teachers with a new program. The second goal is looking at the equity and high quality instruction components of our strategic plan. By 2024, we'll increase student access to high quality instruction and reduce the gap between high needs and non-high needs student population by building the collective efficacy of our district leadership team and the instructional leadership team. this is a big movement in which we're looking at professional learning as our driver. Even yesterday in this very room, we had Dr. Marisa Ferraro from Southern working with us to understand the needs of our multilingual population and how we could better scaffold instruction for those. And we really spent time as a DLT and ILT providing a leadership lens for how do we help to support our teachers in taking on this challenge. The leadership structure that we're using for that is the joint time that we have together with our DLT and our ILT members. Right now, all of these components are on track, aside from that first driver with the curriculum. We're not at a point yet where we have started looking at our standards. Just because our departments and our ILT members are working with their teachers to build a connection between the 21st century skills and the content practices. And we're hoping to have that completed by November 8th. I don't know if we should pause for questions or that towards the end or move on to the.
I wanted the board to see how everybody's goals sort of connect with each other and work together. So unless there's a burning question, if we're okay,
Yeah, that's just move on to the next.
Yeah.
Yes.
want to start at the high school or at Goodwin? Or I know, Sarah and Student Services is going to be the wrap up.
So we're gonna start back on page 1 for Goodwin.
Right.
Perfect.
Brendan, I'm Heston, welcome to the team, by the way. We have this plan called the strategic plan. I don't know if you've heard it or not, but it's something that we are all aligned to. And as I go through Goodwin's goals, you will see how they fit into Caree's goals and then how they fit into the district goals as well. We're spending a lot of time with teachers talking about goals. We have district goals, we have building goals, we have department goals. Teachers are going to have their own academic goal as well as a professional growth goal. And so I'll explain to teachers that we have a system in place to make sure we're streamlining what we're doing and that we're all working together. That's number one. And number two, it teaches us a way to think. And so as we go through these goals, this is really helping us to problem solve, to look at the students in front of us and really determine what they need. So it's a way for us to be thinking about student learning all the time. So that's how I'm explaining that to teachers, and that's the way, you know, I'm digesting a lot of this. It started in July, like Caree said, and this has been a journey for me. It's a lot of new learning, and I look forward to keeping this format for the future and streamlining even more so it trickles down to students. The first goal at Goodwin School has to do with learning targets, and that's connected to the strategic plan is high quality instruction. So we're looking for high leverage strategies that teachers can use to boost student learning. So for example, we have American Reading Program that we are, or ARC, American Reading Company, that we are testing at Goodwin. If teachers want to use a strategy in order to increase student learning, they can use learning targets as a strategy to increase learning in that area. Caree and I have been talking about looking at our universal screens. So our universal screens are in the fall, in the winter, and in the spring, and we see how students are doing. Then we ask teachers to say, all right, out of your students, out of the 20-something students you have, what area are they struggling in? And how are we going to adjust the instruction? And then what strategy we're going to use to make that instruction valuable to our students? And learning targets is one of those strategies. So learning target is not a laundry list or a grocery list, I should say, of tasks that students have to do. Rather, it's about what they are learning and how they are learning it. So we're going to be asking teachers to start every unit, every activity, every lesson, every minute of their day to be talking to students about what they're learning and why they're learning it. And we want students to be able to articulate, I'm learning this because I know what I'm learning, and this is connected to this subject area. We want them, it's the metacognition. We want to know what they're thinking about. Like we're thinking about these goals. We want kids to be thinking about what they're learning and why they're learning it. So I've been spending September and October going into classrooms and whispering in students' ears. What are you doing? What are you learning about? why are you learning this? And I'm collecting my data on what kids respond. And some students, you know, they got it, they know what they're learning and why, and others say, well, because she said to. And they're pointing to the teacher, of course. So we want kids to have a deeper understanding of what they're learning and why they're learning it. And we're gonna measure this throughout the year. We're gonna look at the universal screens and use this tool as a leverage to increase their learning. It's really important that students understand that once they know where they are in their learning, they can set a goal for next steps. I'm here, this is what I can do, but this is the next step that I want to take. And even at a very young age, a 5-year-old in kindergarten, they can get to that point as long as the teacher weaves that into their instruction and expects students to be aware of it. So that is learning targets. And again, that's connected to high quality instruction. Our second goal has to align with multilingual learners and literacy strategies. And again, that's high quality instruction. It's also equity. I think you're all aware that Old Saybrook is the second fastest growing town of ML families. I believe at Goodwin, we have 52 students now that are designated as ML students. And so having these strategies in place are essential for our students in the social, emotional, and academic areas of their life. So we are doing our best to provide professional development for our teachers to use these strategies in their classrooms to make sure that students are maximizing their learning. As you heard from Cree, we did some training yesterday with the instructional leadership team and the district leadership team, and we're getting better at understanding what these strategies are. We'll be measuring where those strategies are now and where student learning is now in the middle of the year and at the end of the year, and see if those strategies are actually helping those students access their learning. And then our last goal has to do with the responsive classroom. This is year 2 of implementation at Goodwin School. It's a social emotional curriculum that's also tied to instructional learning. And our goal is focused on logical consequences. So as students navigate their lives at Goodwin School, they have lots of opportunities to engage in social experiences. And this is their learning. This is their chance to make mistakes and then have guidance around that. So the responsive classroom curriculum gives them that guidance and also unifies it. So we're using the same language and we have the same approach to students. Students at Goodwin School don't get in trouble. They do not get punished. Instead, they have restorative conversation. They have to take responsibility for their actions. One piece of this is you break it, you fix it. You upset someone, you broke a relationship, you have to now fix it. And we work with children on how to fix those problems. We want them to be independent in their life to be able to have a disagreement and then fix whatever the disagreement was and collaborate and work together. There's a reflection piece of that. So if it reaches a level that it's disruptive to the class or disruptive to learning or disruptive to a relationship, we have students do a reflection piece. We are calculating or documenting how many reflections we're doing per grade level. And we're going to see how we do in the beginning of the year. And as we implement more strategies and we spend more time with students with social emotional skills, we're hoping to see those reflections go down. And at the end of the year, we'll have a measure to see where we are. Of course, this is connected to a safe and supportive environment, which is part of our strategic plan. And I'm very thankful to the plan. I know I joked at the beginning, but the plan helps us stay focused and stay on track. I don't think there's a time that Jan comes into the building and sits down with me and she doesn't say, how the goal's going. Those are our conversations. And I'm trying to duplicate that with our staff. I guess I'll take questions at the end as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. At the middle school, we have 2 main goals aligned again to the strategic plan. The first is focused on improving knowledge within the areas of reading, writing, math, and science. And the idea behind this is we have been working within the building for several years now, talking about student ownership for learning. Talking about the learning targets, making sure that the task is aligned to the learning targets and that we have formative and summative assessments as well aligned to those learning targets. And really helping students own and understand where they are in attaining those learning targets and what they need to work on next and how are they going to get to that learning target. So we feel here at year 3 in our strategic plan that this is a good opportunity for us now to really start building teachers' understanding of the data cycles and being able to differentiate their instruction based on the data that they're collecting in their classrooms. So they'll still use high quality instruction along the way, and within that, be able to look at some of these data pieces. A big piece of this is also, of course, the equity piece. We have recognized that our multilingual learners definitely need additional supports. So we have a couple of things in place that we have been talking about with that. One of them being using the CELC standards, which are the Connecticut English Language Proficiency Standards, and looking at students' last link scores to be able to better plan individually for those students in our classrooms. We are also going to be using instructional rounds. So I think I talked a little bit about this maybe last year. Instructional rounds are an opportunity for teachers to come together, observe other teachers in their classrooms, looking for a specific problem of practice. And in this case, I think we're going to be very zoned in on our ML students and finding what practices are working and what do we need to do next as a school. Another piece that we've been working on, and this is actually across buildings, we have been working on an intake process as well as developing individual learning plans for our multilingual students, specifically students that are new to our district and may be new to the language. The idea here was to gather feedback from all 3 buildings, which we've already done, and compiled questions that will help us when we talk with families to build trust with those families, as well as gather information that's going to be helpful for us in supporting students in those classrooms. From there, we'll develop an individual learning plan for those individual kids that will go through our consult process. So again, that idea that we already have a leadership structure in place. Our consult process is a way that we identify needs of students, talk about what interventions or tiered supports those students may need, and then track data to see if those students have made improvements over time. That information gets tracked with the students from year to year so that the next year, teachers are aware of what those students have found to be successful and what things we may need to continue doing. And that actually tracks from building to building as well. So the main goal here is to improve student learning across the board using high quality instruction with a specific focus on our ML students, building their background knowledge as well as their vocabulary as we help support them in those content areas. Our second goal is around the idea of a safe and supportive environment. A lot of the research shows that students do well when they feel that they belong in the setting that they're in, that they have a sense of belonging. So we want to make sure that we are supporting students in building that sense of belonging, specifically with making connections with their peers as well as connections with adults. So we're going to continue to use our advisory program to help build lessons to help students better engage with each other, as well as our 21st century skills of collaboration and teaching students how to use those skills to be successful working with each other. And again, we want to have a specific focus on our ML students. So we are building groups, lunch bunch type groups, where students will have the opportunity to have friends together, but also build in English speaking friends as well, so that they can branch out and develop friendships with new kids in the school, as well as new adults in the building, so that they have that sense of feeling connected and belonging. Each one of these pieces we have built into an idea of a collaborative learning process where different teams and departments, depending on what the topic may be, are learning as they go from the data and the interventions that they're trying in their classrooms, and then bringing that back to a central point that we can learn from that, which will be, in most cases, our school leadership team. ILT may also be a part of that and point throughout the process. But the idea is definitely to make sure we're supporting them academically as well as socially and emotionally, and that those pieces are interconnected so that we can best support all of our students with a special focus on our ML students.
Okay. High school, are we ready? Okay, thank you. Maybe Mr. Plotkin, I'll take the first one. You want to take the second goal?
Sure.
Okay, I will take the first goal. So at the Old Saybrook High School, we have two main goals that are tied directly to the strategic plan. Our first one ties in with equity and high quality instruction. And it's focusing in on students demonstrating an increase in mastery of assessed content standards and a focus on decreasing any performance gap we have with our high needs students, including our ML population, which again is sort of a district focus that we have. We've based our data initially on PSAT data because, as Dr. Fletcher indicated, our departments are currently working on identifying assessed content standards. So we're going to be moving from the more generalized looking overall scores of PSATs to more fine-grained by content areas, which is really exciting for us because then you can sort of hone in and look at whether there are some gaps in curriculum or there needs to be some acceleration in parts of our teaching and instruction or adjustments made. So that's why this is really looking like a 2-year goal. So you see the Y1 and the 2 in the tactics and drivers because we see this as something that's going to extend into next year and possibly even beyond as we fine tune it. Some of the strategies we're building on, we started last year in terms of learning targets. The first thing we did was introduce learning targets, and our percentages of use went dramatically up over the course of the school year. It became common language with our students and our teachers. And now we're looking at the fidelity and quality of those learning targets, the overall learning targets for, say, a unit, as well as the daily learning targets and how they tie in. And last year, we started formative assessment as a way to measure where the students are at in that moment. We're going to continue that and develop that further as well. Mr. Plotkin and I spent time this year in our class meetings. We started actually with the strategic plan, and then we introduced our building goals. And Dave had made a slide that really broke it down to what the students' part in that was, because that's very important, because the goals start at the top, but they should always drive down all the way down to the student level so the students know where they're progressing and how they're doing. So as teachers develop those content standards in their departments, it'll become a more vibrant program in terms of measurement and assessment. We also, under leadership, we've put into play our student intervention team, our school improvement leadership team, and we are forming PLCs, which are professional learning communities. On Mondays, we have a free period and we're able to structure that in, and that's where they'll get the collaborative time to work on problems of practice or analyze student work and decide the next steps in terms of closing gaps or trying different instructional strategies. And that ties in with our work with CPRL as well in terms of doing, analyzing data over time. So you may say, I'm going to try a strategy where I'm measuring the formative assessment in this manner for the next 4 weeks. And then let's come back and talk about how that had an impact on teaching and learning. So we're very excited about that opportunity and our work with CPRL to develop that further. Dave, you want to take goal number 2 there?
Sure. So one of the things we noticed was in our school climate data, there was an opportunity to improve in meeting our students' needs. They reported, actually all of our stakeholders that take the survey reported that there was a need there to do a better job. So we hypothesized that was because of a couple of different reasons. One, and I think Hess and I go back to something you said in the summer, we've been working on evolving our craft, becoming very contemporary, and teachers trying new things. But did we tell the kids we were doing that, right? Did we bring them along with us? So one of the things we need to do is we need to inform and educate our kids. Hey, this might look a little bit different than what you're used to, and this is why, and this is what your role in this new or type of environment or these new instructional strategies. This is what we need you to be doing. So we need to message that to our students and our parents as well. The other thing that we thought that maybe was going on is that we weren't engaging our students in the personalization process as much as we could have. So catering lessons, taking the curriculum and personalizing it for students to engage in areas that are of interest to them, or seeking out opportunities outside of the building that are related to the curriculum, but that give them that real world experience. So those are 2 areas that we're focused on this year to see a boost in that climate survey in terms of us meeting our student needs. And then, of course, that speaks to as well, the population that we're all speaking about, which is our ML students, and making sure that we're meeting their needs too. So I think systemically at the high school, we're gonna be building processes that really put things into play to say, what are our students' needs? What are some things that we can do? And then let's measure those things to make sure that they are having the effective impact that we hope that they are having. As we go forward throughout the year at different points of the year.
So we're gonna slide over the student services goal and go to the athletic activities and physical education goal.
Stand since I didn't get a sign. I apologize if I'm a little less prepared than the rest of the group. But our two main goals, one was for athletics and one was for the PE department at the high school. The first one by June 2024, create 3 opportunities for student leadership during fall, winter, and spring sports season. And this relates to equity and safe and supportive environment in the strategic plan. One thing I've tried to do over this is my 4th year now in this position, is create leaders out of our athletes. Because I think when we have great leadership on our athletic teams, it trickles down to every other student. If you look at some of our younger students, if you ever come to one of our soccer games, some of our younger kids look at these kids like they are gods, like they are professional athletes. And we want those people to be really good people. And we want them to be really good role models for our younger students. So we created a captain's council where 3 times per season, all team captains get together. We've had 2 meetings so far, and we're trying to get more opportunities for them to be leaders off the field. This year we had our first pep rally that we've had, I think, since before COVID. It was completely student run. It went incredibly smooth. We had 5 members, 5 different team captains who set that up. I met with them 3 times, never gave them parameters, never told them this is what it's gonna look like. I said, you have 30 minutes. And it was pretty flawless. And the kids seemed to have a lot of fun. They're already asking me, can we do another one? Can we do another one? We already have one planned for the winter and another one for the spring. Other ways we're trying to do, create leadership opportunities. We had our 8th grade leadership council come up. Our captain's council met with them. Again, it was really great. Mostly just a Q&A. What's it like when I get to the high school? What's this transition like? What's it like being on a freshman team, a JV team, a varsity team? Can I get through a varsity team, as a freshman? They had some amazing questions. It went really smoothly. So we're just looking for more and more opportunities. The next step we want to do is we want to get our athletes involved in the community. So not just at Old Saybrook High School, not just on a field, not just in the school, but maybe it's working with a group, and that group could be anyone. It could be, working with our town's crew to help, beautify some of our town properties. I think we're going to start first doing that on Old Saybrook High School campus. We're looking for volunteers to try and help pick up with some of the garbage that might be around. Just anything to get more kids involved in the community as leaders. The second goal relates to physical education. By June 2024, all students will engage in high quality physical education experience at Old Saybrook High School. And again, this relates to high quality instruction in the strategic plan. Some things we're looking to do there is we want to create new PE experiences using student voice. The more kids that we can get involved in the decision-making process about what we do, especially in something like PE is so huge. We talk about lifelong learners. Physical education is something that's going to stick with you like any other subject for the rest of your life. So if kids have a say in what they do, maybe that kid gets involved in something that is going to help keep them healthier, keep them active, or get them involved in something new. Secondly, I want to work with Dr. Fletcher to create PE-specific professional development. There are a lot of great opportunities. There are a lot of great conferences. There are a lot of great things out there that our PE department can attend and go see. And another aspect to that is going and looking around. There's other great PE departments in Old Lyme and Guilford and surrounding towns. We want to go watch and see what they're doing as well. We also want to introduce project-based learning to our personal fitness classes, where rather than teaching to a group, we're teaching to an individual. Matt wants to learn, the best exercise to become a better swimmer, or Heston wants to learn the best exercise to do to make himself a faster runner, or Sarah wants to be a better cyclist. So we want to get project-based instruction where these young people are working towards a goal that is set by them. Rather than saying, okay, everyone is doing these exercises for the next 35 minutes. That's all we got.
So the newly branded Student Services Department has a unique place in the district. So we have teachers that work in all of the buildings, but we're not a building ourselves. We are a Student Services Department. So my hope was to try to put these, or take some goals from each building. So all of the members of the Student Services Department feel connected to their buildings, as well as create specific Student Services Department goals in all of the areas that, you know, our strategic plan addresses. So some of the tactics that you'll see are repetitive because I've collaborated with my colleagues to choose really good ones and choose the ones that are really related to the Student Services Department, and then come up with a student services goal as well. So my SMARTY goals are related to really increasing students with disabilities time with their non-disabled peers. And what does that look like? That ultimately allows them to access high quality instruction that is going on in each of the buildings, and it is equitable by definition. The high quality instruction, I'll just focus on the student services goal. Thinking about pre and post teaching opportunities for our students with disabilities. If we do that, then my hypothesis is that they will have more time with their peers in classrooms. So really working on that with the special education staff and the counseling staff, speech and related services. Along with professional learning, I'm hoping that if we look at our goals and objectives in a really targeted way, so goals and objectives are part of individualized education plans. If we look at them specifically with a protocol to make sure that what we're writing and what we're hoping for our students to close the gap is aligned with the real grade level and the targets, then we'll have an increased opportunity to allow students to be in regular education classrooms. The leadership structures are really what is on me and what I am hoping to help our special education staff and related services staff to access. So shifting our regular department meetings into more of a PLC format so that we're really looking at some student work and problems of practice. Thinking about individual goals that teachers have and how can I help them grow in that way so that they're not only meeting or they're learning in their own, I guess, little silo, but also into school building, because I think it's important for them to bridge that gap. And really thinking and having teachers work together to look at goals and objectives and IEPs. I mean, last year, this is kind of a segue. Last year, our main lift was CT SEDS, which was a huge new database, but now I think we can look at refining now that we know how to use the system. We're not just putting stuff in there to get it done. We need to really put stuff in there that makes sense for our students and allows them to be in our classrooms more often. The safe and supportive environment goal that I am, again, looking to leverage is also connected to each of the buildings. So Keston talked about responsive classroom, thinking about belonging at the middle school, as well as, I can't read this, sorry.
That's what those are
I
for.
know, they're new.
I know.
I don't think I put something in for the high school, but again, oh, actually,
That was me 11.
right to the next one. So different.
Might go to the back.
And I guess, but the high school identifying ways to provide flexibility so that students can have a unique opportunity. And maybe it requires a van, or maybe it requires Nine-Town Transit, really coming up with teachers or working with teachers so that these students have a sense of belonging. So that was how I approached this task. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. So my real goal for the special services department was to feel connected to the buildings, but also have a sense of a department themselves, and have an opportunity to work in both, buckets.
And Sarah, just so you know, your predecessor grappled with that same thing, how to create goals that were specific to your department, but also supported the goals within the context. But clearly, we don't want students, special education students working on something that's different than everyone else. We want them to be part of it. So I appreciate the struggle, and I think you did a great job of sort of striking the balance. And I really want to thank everybody before the board asked questions. I just want to thank you for working so hard for so many months. This is actually representative of many months of trying things out, boiling them down, really getting specific, supporting each other. The team worked together, and then they went back and did work on their own, and they worked together again, and have been working now in their buildings with their teachers on this. So this is the first final draft, which will become multiple final drafts before the year's over. Trey, I don't know if you want to say anything more before we turn it over to them for questions.
No, I think that you've captured that idea, like it's the first of many final drafts. It's the never fully finished published book that we're putting out there. But we're constantly collaborating and learning. And that's the number one thing that I think I will probably end with. I am very proud of this team for really approaching this process in a learner stance. And it's the same position that we're asking our teachers to come and take that risk and come to this from a position of learning. And how can we continually get better? Not just look at where we are and say, well, we're Old Saybrook, we're good. But no, how do we improve that process for our students? And that means that we have to approach it as leaders and take a learning stance and bring that to our teachers. And they'll bring it to our students. So it's that continuous process, and that's what we're really trying to do here.
I just want to say. That's so amazing. I'm sure we got questions. Can I start?
Yeah, and it's not directed to anybody specifically, but many of you, there's so much talk about the ML students and the increased percentage. Seems to be growing rapidly here in town. So you talked about some of the challenges you're facing and how you're addressing those challenges. Are there any other additional supports that we can help with? From the board perspective, and you don't have to answer it right now, but it just seems to be a growing concern.
I would start answering that by saying that we may need additional staff in the future. I don't know that it will be this year coming up, but with the numbers growing, so we're at 50, what was the number, Hassan, at the elementary school? 52, what are we at, 29, and Dave? 23, so you can see what's happening.
Yeah.
The numbers are increasing amongst our youngest students, and so we're going to come up against a time where we'll need some additional staffing. You may see some additional requests for some program supports in the upcoming budget presentation. I don't know if anyone has anything else you want to add.
Professional learning as well.
Right, so we're working very successfully with Marissa for and we'll be looking at other opportunities. We were quite surprised to learn that we're the second fastest growing. Clearly, it's not going to be large numbers. Yeah, over 10 years, and it's ML students.
Yeah.
So yes, clearly the numbers are much smaller than other communities, but percentage wise, it's significant, and you still have to provide, the programming for these students. Where my particular concern lies is with the older students that we get into our middle school and high school, who come to us perhaps after immigrating from another country, sometimes having, because of traveling for a long period of time, not having been in school for a year or more. And so there are gaps in their learning in their native language, which then of course impacts gaps in learning English and learning content in English. So we are going to keep examining that so that these students, we can give as much support to them as we can in the time that we'll have them. And we've had good success, we really have. But the challenges are going to become more complex as the numbers continue to grow.
I was just gonna add that transportation, Jan is working on a late bus for us after school, because we want more time with these students, the more contact time with us and with their peers, is such a boost to them and make sure they're part of our fabric. So Jan is working on that transportation piece, which is
It's
really
fun.
appreciated, Jan.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that supports equity, right? Because all of our students, no matter what, whether their parents can pick them up at the end of the school day or not, should have access to staff and to extracurricular programs after school. So it's a busing dilemma. It's not money in that case, it's bus drivers.
Yeah, and certainly, outreach to the families as well, and making them feel included and welcome and part of the fabric of our community is another challenge.
Dr. Bachman and Mr. Walton, to a certain degree, took that, the intake form. That's something that they're working on. It was an idea that we all got at a conference this summer. And it's about getting to know these students as quickly as possible, understand them, not assume that every student who comes to us with ML needs has had the same background or experience. So finding out interests, finding out where were they, how can we help them? Are they settled in? Do they need any other support from agencies outside of our school, like youth and family? So I'm really pleased to see the administrative team taking that on and then turning it over to people who feel really safe, like guidance counselors, to ask the important questions.
It's come up right now, the draft plan that we have is kind of a two-tiered plan where we have questions for the intake process that are worded in a way to build trust with the families, but make sure that they understand that we know that they're the experts with their children. So the wording of those questions is really important. So, and we have that differentiated by building based on what the needs are for those students in those buildings. And then a second tier, once the students have started to be able to go back and reevaluate, where are we, what's working, what needs to be adjusted. And at that point, if there's anything else that families may want to share with us, now that we've had an opportunity to build some relationship with the students and the families. So that's where we are right now with it. And we'll be discussing it, I believe, next week at the outreach.
Yeah, and I can piggyback off that as well. I met with Melissa Vasquez McCoy this week, and we're planning to continue our meetings with families and inviting them in because you learn so much, and getting the families in it kind of helps in terms of that, inviting them, making them feel comfortable, sort of breaking bread with them, so to speak. And you learn so much about the backgrounds of the students that we're getting. We just got 2 new students, and we're eager to set up a meeting to see what we can learn in addition, and then share with the teachers.
Just to follow up, because I know on the same topic, I know there's, I can't think of her name, somebody in Saybrook who is working with Ukrainian refugees, bringing them to Saybrook. So there's a situation where, as Jan, you were saying, the backgrounds of these incoming students are so different, and that's such a traumatic situation they're coming from. So that's yet another burden
Right,
on us providing
absolutely.
additional support.
Right, and it's not just those students, but it could be any of our multilingual, well, it could
Sure.
really be any of our students, really, but we
Yeah.
want to make sure that they feel comfortable being able to share
Yeah.
what their needs are so that we can help put those pieces in place to support them and their families,
Including dealing with trauma.
Yeah.
including that. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm gonna jump onto a different subject. So Heston mentioned it, you all did a terrific job. I think it was a wonderful education time for me. So Heston, you mentioned at a very elemental level, that you want students to know what they're learning and why they're learning it. And so I have a question for, that can happen at the elementary level, but how can that happen in a middle school level? And then how does that happen in a high school level? And each one takes a certain developmental approach. And what happens when the student says, I don't really know? So then maybe that gives you opportunity for professional development. But I think that's always the key, because I remember myself at school going, why do I have to learn this algebra? Why do I need to know geometry?
They're
Like,
actually,
there's no answer. It was just like, well, you have to take the regions.
the strategies are actually happened at the middle school and high school prior to us taking on this goal. So they've helped me learn more about learning targets and how to best address the staff. So it's been great to collaborate with them because they've gone through this already.
And I would say one of the big pieces there is not just having what your daily learning target is, but what's the overarching learning target for that unit? So that the students, when we talk about the daily learning target, they can connect it back to that overarching learning target, and that helps set the purpose. I'm learning about, this piece of grammar because I want to be a better writer and be able to write a story about this topic. So that helps set that purpose and continuing to connect that daily learning target back to the overarching learning target built for purpose.
Is there time during your day to even address that? And that's tough.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
embed it in
very
our
personal.
observation process, so it's actually something that we specifically do in each classroom. We go on, we meet with students and we ask them those questions, very specific, and we collect that data.
Terrific.
Yeah.
And at the high school, oh, go ahead. Joe.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, Dave. Go ahead, Dave. Good.
At the high school, taking the overarching learning target and asking our students when appropriate. What do you think our learning target should be today in order to do that overarching learning target that you're expected to do at the end? And based on what you did yesterday, and based on where you are in the process, what should our learning target be today to work on or tomorrow? And involving them in the process of creating this.
Because there's so many they could choose from.
Based on their needs, though.
Yes.
That's important.
Jane, then Kelly.
Okay, so I just have a question, a little bit about, I guess, like the data cohorts for each of these goals, and I guess Korea, it's really more, I guess, more for you, and looking at it, it looks like it's the same cohort where they start in the beginning of the school year, and then where are they by like May, end of school year type of thing, right?
Yes.
The only one that I think might be different, I'm just curious how the cohorts work, and it probably is for the goal you were talking about, Joe. Because it's looking at the PSATs, which is something that's only measured one time a year. So when you look at that particular goal, by May of 2024, all students will demonstrate increase in the mastery assessed content standards with a decrease in performance gap in students with high needs as measured by the PSATs grade 9. And then grade 10 is 60% will meet both math and I guess that's English reading, writing benchmark. And then grade 11 is a lower number. So do we look at things, how grade 9 does one year, how grade 9 does another year, and grade 9 does another year? Is that the cohort, or is it the class of, say, 2027, when they come in as grade 9, when they're sophomores, then they're juniors?
Yeah,
That makes
ideally, you would want to follow the same cohort. We're at sort of the infancy stage here. So we need to build a system within our building, which is what we're working toward in terms of measuring identified standards that are valuable or deemed valuable by each department within their content area. And that getting measures of those and measuring those over time is going to show the growth for the students at that level. We're not there yet. We're trying to build that system this year. So we're starting with the data that we can have. However, having said that, in the PLCs that we're forming, teachers could identify gaps or areas that they feel that need improvement and identify those and measure those and then build assessments around that at this level. So we're kind of at the infancy stage, and I don't think it's unique at the high school level because we don't really have universal screens. We don't really have, we don't normally use STAR. We don't usually have measures. They sort of have to be organic, and we want them to be organic. We don't want them to be artificial benchmarks that, you do every 3 months, because those tend to lose their weight and authenticity. It should come from what teachers have identified as what they need their kids to do. We can also focus in on the 21st century skills. We've been doing that now for 3 years, and the rubrics are now more refined. Teachers are more comfortable with the language. Students are understanding, what the assessments mean. We now have artifacts. We have anchor sets. We have, exemplars we can point to so they know what they're shooting for. So that can be weaved into the system as well.
Joe, if I could just add to that too, the 50%, 60% did come from the previous year's performance on the test. So that's what we based our goal on this year. What level of growth should we expect to see based on the standards that we're going to put into play? And we wrote our goals actually as a 2-year sort of plan, and this is only year 1 that you're seeing.
Right.
If you were to see the other year, you would see that the language start shifting from PSAT and SATs to more of midterms and finals. We just need that time to build the capacity to identify, assess standards, and then measure our progress in student growth in those assessed standards. So this is kind of a placeholder year with the SAT, PSAT data as we build the capacity, like Joe said.
Thank you.
Kelly,
Okay, so two comments if you'll allow me. So the first is, we spend so much time being intentional with these goals and thoughtful, right? And from a communication plan perspective, how we translate those out to parents and give them an idea on what we're focusing in each of the schools. Just wanna think about how we're doing that, because like, yeah, well, not only that, but like, I think that there's probably an opportunity for how we can be proactive with that, like, and I'm not saying that we're not making it readily available, or if somebody's looking for it, that they can go find it on our website and kind of dig through, but like, parents within the community don't get the same access that we do within the board. They can listen to this conversation, right? But like, how do we put this into normal parent speak about what each school is focusing on, what each department is focusing in on for this year, and how we're being intentional, because we spend so much time on it, right? Like, and it's so important. So it's the first kind of comment and just thought for booking. I'm not looking for an answer.
No, but I do want to provide some information.
Yeah.
You're right. I'm sure we can think of other ways to do that. But I know like this past year, Heston included the goals, his building's goals on his weekly newsletters at the top. We will do, Trent will do a video that outlines the goals in a very, like 4 minutes. For a very high overview, because we don't expect people to read this. And then our public relations committee last year helped us clean this document up for parent use. So by about 2/3 of the way through the year, we had a nice clean document to present on the website. We're gonna do that earlier this year, because I think that suggestion either came from them or from the board or somebody. So we will do those things, and any other suggestions that you or your peers have, please share them.
Thank you. The second piece of this document, and I realize I'm coming from corporate America, so I will preface that, that we have, the Smarty goals, which are great in the format, and the tactics column focuses very heavily on the tactics, like the how we're gonna do it. But for example, and I'm not picking on you, Sarah, I'm just giving this as an example, like there's a really, time with non-disabled peers, we're gonna go year-over-year growth, right? We want that to increase, but we don't have any idea of like, what are we shooting for? What does that look like when it's good, right? Is it a 50-50 split? Is it greater than 50%? Like, what are we benchmarking ourselves against? So like, if we go from 10% in the classroom to 15% in the classroom, that's great because we made improvement, but what are we shooting for, right? And in some of these areas, it's very clear what that metric is, maybe not carried into that column. It's in the Smarty goal, but not carried into that column. And in some areas, we don't have like a benchmark. So I think a lot of times when we're looking at, how are we making progress and demonstrating progress for the year, or even from a parent perspective, we're going like, well, what does good look like, right? Like, what are we shooting for here within this district? We know we have a great district, but like, how do we know that, right? As like individual members within the community, and how are we going to show progress towards what we are saying is important in this document? So maybe that's an opportunity, to maybe separate that piece out or handle it, because I think the tactics piece is equally important, right? It's like the how we're going to get there and the what we're going to focus on. But just in certain areas, that's just a point of feedback on the document.
thank you. Karina.
Thank you. This is a very sophisticated document. You all have done an amazing job of filling it in. I agree completely with the inconsistency of most especially the tactics, like, and so my question is, so Corrine, is there a keeper of the document? Is there that when each, right, I don't want to, name you that if you're not that. So, that when somebody puts their content in, you can provide feedback and coaching, because it is new for many of the participants. Like I look at, and when I look at Goodwin, the tactics are, very different from tactics that we see on the other. So is there an opportunity for sort of like a screening of, hey, you've done this really, really well, but let's work on, X, Y, Z, so that it is more clear and the connections are easier, so that when we go in and report, it's easier to make those connections.
So that, again, just a comment for consideration, for consistency. And then again, just a comment about the document itself, there are some cells that are swallowed.
Yeah.
Which I think you guys found out by navigating around, so that's something to be careful about. And then my one question that I have is about the PSATs. And I appreciate what you said, that you're starting somewhere, right? It's a measurable, standardized metric. Have you, everything we hear about SATs and standardized testing is that they're written from a particular implicit bias. And so I think it may be giving us, we just may need to be cautious about the results that we're comparing to, especially from multilingual learners, right? And so we may have skewed results if we're using that as our measure. So I'm glad to hear that you're working on how can we really tell that improvements are being made and that we have a baseline, because my original comment when I reviewed this online was, wow, schools are phasing out standardized testing even as a measure of admission. And so we should be, so I'm glad to hear that you guys are looking, figuring out what's more meaningful.
Yeah, it's an aptitude test, and we've been trying to figure out what the high school could do here for these measurements, because we recognize that there isn't anything that exists, especially because we have broadened our definition of assessment. So it's not like we all use it's such the same midterm. We don't want them to. That's not really what we're going for. But you can see this is some of the early work on these goals right behind us, and we're struggling with that because we recognize that that's a very weak way of assessing. So the best thing we're going to be able to do is kind of use it as a baseline and then go from there. And so the work the high school has to do this year is in creating those I don't want to say common assessments. I don't know how should I use this thing, those items that will assess
Standards aligned.
meaningful, yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Standards aligned assessments.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that we'll have, and they'll be throughout the year instead of at the beginning or the end of the year. Joe, I'm sorry, I think I cut you off.
No, I was going to say something along the lines of David, but he nuanced it perfectly.
And Heston, I think you articulated very nicely what your tactics are for collecting the information. I'm like, oh, I'd love to see that here as a tactic, because I think it's effective and it's direct. Anyway, that's, I think you guys did
Thanks for the
it.
feedback.
Steve, yeah,
I do. I'm gonna bring it to the athletics and activities. It seems like everything's based on the high school level. Do we have any looks at the middle school level? I know we have sports teams at the middle school. I know we had some discussions at the board level at one of our last meetings about some concerns of sports at the 5th and 6th grade level. So just wondering if we have a tie-in between the two schools.
Absolutely. Like I said, we had the 8th grade leadership council came up and spoke with the high school team. We have high school kids holding clinics. We have field hockey run by high school kids. They're trying to get more kids back interested in field hockey. I worked with Mr. Wall and Dr. Bachman, but yes, those goals were more specific to the high school group.
Is there gonna be any look in the future of adding in some goals for the middle school and development of some of the grade activities? Would be great. Thank you.
And on that note, if you don't mind, we
I know
actually have
we'll
our
get
first
middle school game.
middle school night meeting tonight.
Oh,
And
that's
I'm very excited to get there. I missed a little bit of it. So if anyone has questions specific for me, if you want to email them to me, I'll take care of them next board report. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you.
So under.
Yeah, so I thank all the administrators for working on this for months, and for your patience with the process, because I know it was a heavy lift for us, and there's nothing fun about this sort of long banging it out and gathering more data and banging it out, but I really feel like the product that you have is something that each of you has a piece to carry, plus. But the thing I'm really most pleased about is that this team works so well together, and they have like a matrix of support for each other's goals, and I feel very confident they can move this forward. Year will not stop because there's a transition coming. Year will keep going.
You're gonna learn to love the strategic plan, right?
And I'm just gonna ask you to stay for just a few more minutes while we do the communication piece.
Yes, we'll be on communication.
So let me begin with some good news. And I'm sorry Brendan left because we just heard from Kate today. We won more communication awards this time than ever before. And I said, well, geez, were we the only people who applied? And we were told, no, they had a record number of applications this year. So here is what we won. For district website, Old Saybrook Public Schools is the winner. Along with Region 18, that's Lima Line. So our Old Saybrook Public Schools website, which you know is brand new and refined, a lot of work went into it by Trent, Ashley, Tyler, Jeff, and others. Everybody had their hand in it. It is now an award-winning website, and that's something that we've been working on for 10 years to keep improving.
That's wonderful.
And this is the part that I wish Brendan were here for. The parent-student handbook, in particular, the emergency action plan for athletics that Brendan wrote, along with support from all of us, but he really took lead on it. That was one of his first big administrative tasks, and that was something that was required by the state. And ours, I think, is very, very good. I know he used a number of different models and templates, but came up with something that really is supportive of our athletes. We also, let's see, we got an honorable mention for the Old Saybrook Public Schools Strategic Plan Year 2 video. This is in AV. The Year 2 in review that we published last spring in June. And then we won first place again in the Strategic Plan Year 2 Goodwin Domino Run.
Nice.
So that particular one.
Was that the cereal box?
The cereal box.
Oh, nice.
Yes, so that was, they were studying motion.
Probably the messiest one of all.
Up and down the top of the building, a lot of fun, and then all those boxes of cereals went to the suitcase, the food gatherers. So just an all-around winner, and so that's the most we've ever won on public relations and communication. And I remember 11 years ago when I came here, we had a lot of surveys done by the community, and one of the things that we kept getting cited for was poor communication. I can't speak to it, I don't know what they were referencing or not referencing. I only know that I really feel like we've checked that one off the box. Now, it doesn't mean you get to stop, because obviously that's an ongoing thing, but we've created a level of communication that really, I think, exceeds the expectations. People are very happy with it. They report being happy with it.
That's fantastic.
And to that, and you have also 2 other documents on communication on the right side of your folder. And they are some analytics and just some simple accounting of what's been done. Last year at this time, there was concern from the board that there was a lot of good communication comes from central office, but not necessarily from the buildings. And I think you're going to see how easily that was corrected just by having new technology. So the first list is 2 pages of district email communications from July 6th to October 3rd. And it's a lot of communication. The next page is the district live feed communications. These are pushed out social media. They also appear on our website. The Twitter feed just comes up on the website. These are from the district level. And there are 3 pages of that from the district level from July 6th to October 12th. Going on to Goodwin. So here's the thing that's really good. We corrected it. These are all pretty equal. So Goodwin email communications, a page plus a little bit more. Goodwin live feed, almost 3 pages. So lots of information going out quickly, real time to families from Goodwin. On the next page, the OSMS email, 1.5 pages almost. And then the live feed, once again, 1.5 pages. Same with the high school. Page and a little bit more of emails and 1.5 pages of live feed. Pretty equal across the district, across the schools. Everyone is communicating. This is certainly, I think, and all of the administrators speak to it, it's a mechanism of having our Thrill Share component, having everyone have access to, well, appropriate people having access to the social media and being able to push stuff out. As their athletic director is constantly pushing things out. And so that is all just really positive. The other document that you have is a snapshot from October 8th to October 16th of what the analytics look like. Who's using where are the users coming from to access, our website, and what are they landing on? So you can see, what in one day, 227, 227 hits, I guess is the term, would be a one day, the 1 day mark. Over 7 days, it was 1.1 thousand. And then over 30 days, 1.4. You might say, why so many in 7 days and so few, and not that many more in 30 days? And that's because when we put out our school lunch menu, everybody hops on. So that's why. You can see where they landed. So pretty equal, with the exception of lots going to staff, I guess, to communicate with staff. Everybody landing on our homepage, almost 1,000. And then how are they accessing us? There were over 850 downloads of our mobile application when this document was written, and we never got that many off of our old mobile app ever. We didn't even get half that of our old mobile app. So I think people are finding it to be a very useful tool, very user friendly, and certainly an upgrade. So I'm very proud and happy that the work of that team is getting recognized by Kate, because it's made a difference, I think.
And people can call us and decide how to do it.
That's right.
I'm sure it'd be
Yes,
like
they can.
the talent source.
Yeah, except we're not giving them any real names. They'll take our people.
Right.
No real names.
Thank you, Jen. Oh, Karina.
Just a quick question, the live feed, is that on both X and
It's on X and
and
Facebook.
Facebook?
Yeah.
Do we know what the engagement or consumption is on X?
I only have a non-scientific method, which is I'm a follower of Old Saybrook Public Schools, and I don't see a lot of likes or shares.
On that
On X,
platform?
yeah.
Yeah, that probably, I mean, that makes sense.
And the kids told me I need to be on Instagram, but we gotta work out details. what it is.
So there,
Go ahead, Jen.
for the live feed, does any of that come through the app, or that's just from X, and the live feed is only X and Facebook?
The live feed is X and Facebook.
Okay,
yes.
so there's not, like, when you go on to the app, there's no way to go onto the app and see any of these information. any
I'm
of
gonna
these things.
defer to the administrator. I bet they know.
I think it does all three.
Yeah,
it posts to the website too.
Yeah, so the stuff that gets posted to the website, X and Facebook, all pops up in the live feed, right?
I don't know about the Facebook.
Okay.
But I think even if you don't have those,
I don't have access.
Okay.
The administrator, no, it's not interested.
so if
Trying to
somebody
look
doesn't
right now,
have,
I'm not ignoring.
so if somebody doesn't have X or Facebook or whatever, I think they go to the website and they can see what we are posting on those applications, even though they don't have it.
That's correct.
So, yeah, so they could still, it's probably a quicker way to get to it almost. Just people need to get in the habit of it, that's all.
I don't think the administrators have access.
You don't have that
Right.
Facebook, but Trent does, and I believe Brendan does,
Yes.
Yeah.
and maybe Jeremy Taylor. Although don't quote me on that. Yeah, it's just, we have distributed the power to post easily amongst everybody. Appropriately, because then they have to do things like if they're posting pictures of students, they need to be sure they can post pictures of those students. So that really can't be shared with everybody in the district. That have to be shared with select people, but it's now easy to do. You can have your secretaries in the main offices doing it, administrators can be doing it themselves. And it doesn't take a lot of work to get done. It used to be you had to call here, you had to send a picture to Trent, it all had to be posted, and that wasn't as valuable. Pretty excited about that. And congratulations on the cable awards, and don't forget, if you go to the conference on Friday, you get your picture.
Did we win the others? Or did we have it on?
These are Justice Communication Awards. The Bonnie Carney Excellence in Communications Awards.
We're even here, and I'll give a check.
We didn't, I'm very hopeful though. I think it'll be fine.
So, moving on, board roles, responsibilities, and operations.
Dan, is it okay if the administrator
Yeah,
leave at this time? Thank you all.
Thanks for being
Bye. Bye, Christine, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Now we have a good time. We take a quick break. That's good. I think we're gonna do that. I would say.
Otherwise, you're gonna be in trouble. Otherwise, I'm weird.
Anybody want to drink?
Yes, I was just gonna get to that.
Time out.
Yes.
Don't get
Anyone want a sandwich before I put it away?
Yes.
Yeah, grab, I don't wanna leave that food out. And get icky.
That's all right.
Trevor Street. And so we decorate and invite families of employees. So our section was, zombie disco zombie, so we all wore the, it may go in the dark, I'm not really sure. I have a wig on, but I probably have stopped.
Yeah, you do, you're a bit glittery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Let's see.
It's a very cool t-shirt, I mean, I have to say.
Employees?
No, we
bought it?
yeah.
Bought them off Amazon?
We, yeah. We all leave.
But anyway.
Yeah.
I think we lost Alan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was available the whole night tonight, you want to be on the beginning.
All right. Is he traveling? Is that person on vacation?
I always forget, we just log out.
No, Alan's on vacation, because you're traveling.
Video is all driving around with lights shining down.
You never, I talked about it last meeting.
I thought he looked like Steve Jobs up there.
Same virtually, right?
Maybe.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and put this, everyone okay if I put this away now? I mean, we can pull it back out again if you're still hungry. We don't believe me any.
When I rate the constituents. So they wanted to bet.
Yeah, figure that out. Is that working?
Well, you know. All right, I got it.
Yeah, it's not fun, just a certain way.
I know it. All right.
Wow. Nobody ever touched me in that. There's no one in there. They're usually empty. They're just sleeping. Yeah.
Well, I didn't say that. They're lined up in all kinds of trouble. I hope so. So,
Oh, you have like little chips in them. I bet you are.
So it's about how we get. We're back on.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we left off, so we're now looking at board roles, responsibilities and operations. Jeremy, you want to start with that?
Well, thank you. After this meeting.
Do you want me to do it? All right, so I think actually this agenda item starts your leadership agenda, right? For the board member part of it. And typically that is divided into a public discussion as well as an executive session that relates to the performance of individuals, including the superintendent, the board chair, and any board member as an individual. In the past, and Karen can comment on this or not, the way items have made their way onto this agenda is because individual board members have said, we'd like to talk about something and reflect upon the last 6 months of how something is going in a manner that is collaborative and consistent with your goals for this meeting. So effectiveness of meetings, likely done in this agenda because somebody said, let's have a discussion about effectiveness of meetings.
I
So,
think it's a standard item,
oh, okay.
and it's a stage, just like communication, board roles, responsibilities and operations, effectiveness of meetings. It's sort of a standard topic we talk about, I think.
So let's start with, does anybody have any concerns or commendations about the effectiveness of meetings at Blake? How's that sound?
No.
Okay.
So I know the last time we did this, I remember the board was like, I think we're asking too many questions. So what I do now is I look at the items that the student reps put out, and then I circle back to Dan, and I'll say, this really doesn't give enough information, so instead of utilizing the time at a board meeting, I get to find out a little bit more, and then they may incorporate that into their presentation. I'll say that from my perspective in terms of effectiveness, meetings.
I think that was one of the suggestions that you all discussed as a group.
Yeah. And I'm just sharing that I implemented it.
I suggest that, I think that's working out well, because now the students have a better understanding of the expectations, so I think that you'll find you have to do that less and less, because they'll keep doing better. All right, hearing nothing other than crickets, I guess one question did we lose Alan on purpose? Oh, you seem to have signed off. Okay. I didn't know if we just somehow in the break dropped it.
Yeah, he said, he was away and he
Oh,
took off this short point tonight.
okay. Let's go to Cape Professional Development Center.
Okay, I have some handouts to pass out.
Perhaps I can preface this. I think somebody mentioned it, maybe when we knew this was coming up. What does CAVE do for us and how much do we pay? And so we were gonna have that conversation, a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I spoke to CAVE and I said, could you please send me some information that'll best explain what you're getting for the amount of money that we're paying? But then I also asked how they decide maybe on the cost. And they said, well, it's not a fine point, but it really has to do with the size of the district. But if you can see, please take a few minutes just to take a look. The many things that they provide, and when I was speaking to Alan about it, because I wasn't sure he was going to be here, one of the things that we really came up with was that number one, that CAVE, like CAPS, is really the only organization really in the state of Connecticut that is devoted to representing the needs of boards of education. That's on the benefits of CAVE membership. What they've also done is they have evolved as members of a board of education to archive things. Many of us work. And often when I first joined CAVE, I would be like, why are they having all these meetings in the middle of the day? But people work. So now I think they've been taking topics that they know are applicable to boards of education. If your superintendent, wasn't active and not sharing it with you, that you can archive it. Not that we don't have time, but it's available. And so that's something to know. It's like everything else, you have to make yourself available to find out some things if you would like to know what's going on more on the state level. During COVID, they basically, I think did this for free, but they really opened up to board chair opportunities where board chairs or anyone could just hear some of the dynamics going on among boards of education which I think are learning experiences, so we don't keep ourselves in isolation just because we're here in Old Saybrook. There's so many other opportunities that are going on in the state of Connecticut that if you don't hear from your superintendent, we're just lucky that we hear so many things, but and she's so actively involved, so I always think that what CAPS is to some extent, because they're all educators to superintendents, CABE is to members of the Board of Education, which are a cross-section of people throughout the state of Connecticut, because we're coming all from very different backgrounds. Some people are very interested in finance, and some people are, perhaps like myself, very interested in policy. And although we don't have we still can get policies from CABE. They used to be really the only organization that was providing educational policies geared toward education. We, as a board, had decided at some point, Shipman Goodwin threw their hat in, and they decided they were going to try to provide policies for boards of education. So that has a little bit more of a legal twist, where your superintendent really takes a look and says, let me take this and let me operationalize it for you. And it's really something like a choice, where you best fit. But there are many things. I just remember that when I first joined this board, and I certainly had never been a member of Board of Education, and a lot of the behaviors were kind of odd. And I really needed some guidance just on my own. And I was like, so who do I even contact? And I contacted CABE, and I was like, so when do I say something? When do I not say something? What if it's disagreeable? But they have such a experience, and now with their new leadership with Patrice McCarthy, so much experience in guiding board members in so many different ways. We're lucky tonight we have Anne, but they are like a 24/7 where, I don't know how to do this. I'm trying to bring up a topic and nobody seems to listen. How do I do it? So they provide more than just, scripted kinds of things. Not that they're scripted, but there's just a lot of things that they provide. They're also interested in diversity, in the state level, and their conferences are excellent. And how you get about, presenting and attending and meeting people, it's a choice. But I couldn't imagine not having a CABE available to our Old Saybrook Board of Education. I think that they're always looking to improve. They're always very open. And if there's something that they're not doing, they would be glad to be able to incorporate it. And they're making some changes right now just based on new leadership. Okay.
Jim?
Yeah, Jan, I'm sorry to put you on the hot seat here, but it says, one of the bullets, CABE provides advocacy on behalf of local boards at the legislative level. Do you find that to be true? I guess I don't know too much about what CABE does or how they are impactful, if at all, at the state and legislative level.
Yeah, they are very involved, both Sheila and Patrice, who are two, Patrice is now the director, and I don't know what Sheila's title is, maybe legal, she serves almost like a lobbyist. They're there during the session quite a bit. I see them there, and they will write up reports. They also sponsor the CABE Day on the Hill, which gives all of us an opportunity to go to Hartford, and you can bring students and board members and sort of present educational issues to legislators. And then they will hold follow-up meetings after the legislative session is over to talk about what legislation has moved forward and implications for boards of education. So in that regard, they do a lot of that work for boards of education in the same way CAPS does for superintendents.
Okay, and how, Eileen or Jan again, how are they finding out all this? In other words, how would they know what's suitable for Old Saybrook and what Old Saybrook their pressing needs are? I mean, I don't think I've seen them at a meeting that we've had.
We did have, I think we had Patrice here once, I forget why, but we invited her. But I don't know they specifically would target Old Saybrook unless we ask them to look into something specific.
Right, I was trying to see the Shoreline Pulse, for example, do they know what Old Lyme and Old Saybrook and Westbrook are
Yeah,
interested
I have
in?
no idea.
So it's a really good question, because they've been trying for a long time to have somebody represent the various areas in Connecticut to really bring Shoreline Boards of Education together. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and I think I tried to represent it many years ago just to get a highlight of what are we interested in here on Shoreline? Perhaps maybe they're similar, maybe they're different, but it's not that they're not interested. It's just tough to get somebody to commit to that time and to get everybody together. And just to get some feedback, but they are interested. I think your question again was, how does it tailor for Old Saybrook?
Not necessarily, I'm not
Taylor?
Old Saybrook focused, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, if they're not visiting us, maybe they're not visiting Westbrook, and maybe they're not visiting Old Vine, maybe they are, I don't know. But, how do they get a flavor of what the pressing, there's topics that they discuss in Hartford, and there's topics that everybody discusses down here in the shoreline area, and I'm sure Fairfield County has the same types of issues.
And I think your question is well taken, because when I went for that interview, they said, how can CAVE improve? And I said, I think that a way that they could improve is really targeting different parts of the state of Connecticut and getting some good feedback on some of the positive things that districts are doing and some of the challenges. And so they know, and also dealing with equity and inclusion and diversity. They're growing a lot more. If I've been on that board for a while, they really have a good representation now of diverse individuals that are willing to participate with. Yeah.
They have different sort of types of groups, like they have an urban superintendent group, and they have different people looking at finance and people looking at labor relations and things of that nature. So I don't know if it's regional. It seems to be more issue specific. At least from my experience with them, they're a wonderful resource.
Do we get any information on how many boards of education belong to CAVE and how many of our neighboring boards of education belong to CAVE? That's one question that I had. And then my other question is a very specific one, and that is, I don't know, Jan, if you know, when we were doing the delayed school start time project, Tara was able to send an email out to her colleagues, other board chairs. Did she do that using a CAVE listserv?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, so any information on? how many?
Easily obtained. I can get that for you.
Okay.
Yeah, easily obtained.
I wanted to add, I spoke with Patrice McCarthy about a month ago, looking at the costs, and she emphasized the fact that she's going to come out and present to us if we have an issue. We want to talk, support a topic, so we want to come out. So.
I mean, I think to that point, like maybe if we're talking under the broader scope of roles, responsibilities and operations. If there's areas that we want to think about for focused, intentional professional development for the board, right? So are there joint areas where we want to consider that we either want to educate ourselves further on either the mechanisms for how things work within the state or certain topical areas that may or may not be offered by CAVE, like maybe CAVE's a mechanism, maybe CAVE is not the mechanism, maybe it's something else. As an assessment of how we're operating, kind of where our functional knowledge level is, especially given the fact that we're gonna have a superintendent transition coming up.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I know that a while back, I think maybe now, there was a presentation that I presented about implicit bias that CAVE, was really looking at, and most of the board members were like, we do so much at work, we don't really need it, but it was actually an option. That some board members thought would be really beneficial, just to know what happens in our district and ourselves personally and professionally.
I think I'd like to echo what you said, because we've been blessed that Jan does a very nice job of mentoring us as a board, and we have a great symbiosis, but that we, if as the head goes, so goes the body, right? And she's a strong leader, and you really have shaped our experience and led us well. And so I think it's important for us, when we face that transition, are we going to be as strong a board together and understand our roles and responsibilities in that regard? So that may be something that we want to explore.
I think it's, sorry.
Go ahead.
But I think it's important for us to understand and maybe not wait for passively what CAVE is going to offer us, but think proactively about maybe where we have gaps or learning opportunities or where we want to get stronger so that we can balance that equation that you're talking about. Right.
My leader, not just your superintendent search.
Yeah, they do searches as well.
Maybe multilingual.
Yeah, since it's growing.
Yeah.
Well, even just maybe there's something that they offer about transitioning, you know? Maybe there'll be something for you to listen to or take part in, whether it's a webinar or in person about, you know, what is it like to form those new relationships with a new superintendent?
I did actually, excuse me, I'm sorry. I did actually print up the CAVE Superintendent Search Services Handbook. As I was doing some research, you know, on search firms and questions to ask and all of that, and it, you know, it's a good flow chart of the process and the steps and all of that, and so they may have, you know, they may have some transition services. I'm not sure about that yet, but we can find out. Yeah.
The other piece I always think that we're so fortunate that we never had to do, well, Jan's tenure, the roles and responsibilities of superintendent and Board of Ed, because it just, he's such a strong leader in such
Yeah.
so it's such an experienced and sensitive way that we function beautifully in terms of not stepping on the toes. And if any of us have been able to say, so sorry, we didn't really need to step on your toes. And sometimes you'll have boards of education that, you know, will feel like they're the expert at something. And so where are the roles? Where is the delineation? I remember superintendent, you know, once saying, this is totally true. I like women that compete, but I just don't like competing women. I was like, oh, so interesting perspectives on how boards, wasn't for me personally, but it was just in terms of how people approach, you know, working with groups of people. But that would be important just to know how to operate moving forward. Just an idea, Kelly.
Just in this realm too, if there's some level or if there's some reference, so in larger districts, a lot of times you'll have an assistant superintendent, which like typically takes on the HR responsibility. We don't have that here, right? So as we're bringing in a new employee and onboarding a new employee that's actually the head of the district, what HR, new leader assimilation style things that we're going to make available for this leader in order to set them up for success. Given the fact that like we can't expect that of totally of the other leadership roles here, and some of them are newer to begin with as well. So just how are we going to intentionally stand that up, and whether again that's through CAVE for another mechanism. Just think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we have them, they're offering their services, we might as well use them. So.
Or they may know other services within the state that they can recommend. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for having the update. Our next item is the executive search for superintendent of schools, and I'm gonna just, I have a brief update. I'll let Karen chime in after I'm done. So we received a contract from CES, and I reviewed it with Alan, Karen, and we need some more information before we can forward with it. So we actually have the meeting scheduled on Friday with them here to go over some areas, just maybe need more clarification on the process, the things we're looking for, in the contract and move forward. So that's where we stand. And Karen, you have an update too.
Well, yeah, I've been trying to, so in the packet that we got from CPS, they gave us their client list with some references, so I've been trying to track down. I actually spoke with 3 today, that's why I was so late coming in. Very chatty one this evening. So hopefully I'll hear from the last one. I'm trying to target districts that are smaller like we are, right? I don't need to be speaking to, you know, Bridgeport necessarily. So I'll be able to report on that a little later, but that's what I've been focusing on, just trying to talk to other board chairs and their experience with this company.
So as I mentioned, for me, on Friday morning, we're gonna flush out some things, and then ideally, we'll be able to give us another contract, which we can have our attorney, Rebecca Santiago, review for us moving forward and sign it. So, any question?
Yeah, my question is around timeline. I think when we left the last meeting, we were under the impression that we would have a contract signed.
Yeah.
And that would accelerate the timeline. So I absolutely recognize, you know, the reason I think it's good, right, that we're doing this research. Is there a risk? What's the risk associated, right? So there's risk to the schedule, there's risk to, is it possible that the contract won't be acceptable? And should we be doing concurrent research for the other candidate as well, in the event that we need to pivot? Because I would hate for us to get into a position where now we're delayed even more significantly, like, I would have, it would have been great if we could have done this for both, right? And then that would bring us to a place where we actually had a more informed decision. We made a decision based on that presentation and, I would just be concerned about the risk associated with where we are versus where we want to be and how prepared are we for, gathering a full picture around both organizations.
Good comment. I mean, we're really, we think by Friday, we're gonna have some good answers. Questions.
And I've gotten some excellent feedback.
Okay, yeah, because like, are we concerned? Like, is there
I'm not at this point.
It's just that the contract itself, there was leaving things in the contract. We weren't just gonna
Absolutely.
sign it the way it was.
Yeah, which is great.
And we just want to clarify, for example, the process that we typically use here when we hire admin positions didn't align with what they were recommending, so, we need to kind of hash that out.
Right.
Just a couple things like that we have specified in the contract. I think.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing all the right things.
Just asking all the questions, delving a little deeper and getting the language that we want in the contract before we sign. But reference checks are going well, just to put everything's mind at ease.
Moving forward, we're just
Yeah.
taking a couple extra steps to make sure we're doing the right thing right now. Okay.
One question, if, because it is public knowledge that Jana's leaving, and I'm sure there are people who have maybe their eye on the opportunity. Is there anything that, any way that we could, communicate with potential applicants, in terms of what they should do at this point, or just wait until CES starts?
Wait until
Gotta wait,
CES
okay.
starts.
We're very close. I mean, a couple of days, we're gonna be doing that here. Central office.
We're close, yeah, we'll have it
We're
wrapped up
close.
this week.
Now, we should have to give you guys an update, so we get through that.
And Karen, they're in line with the focus groups that we talked about.
We're gonna confirm everything. Yes,
That's what we want.
That's kind of essential.
he's gonna confirm everything, yeah.
Any other questions about the search? Okay. Any other comments to make?
No.
Okay, I'm moving on. We're gonna, I'm looking for a motion to go into an executive session. Okay. Second by Jim, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved.
Okay. Have the motion reflect that you're inviting Jan
Apologize.
and
Amended as.
So revised motion, right?
Yeah, got it.
All right, thank you. We're now in executive session.